Welcome back to The Exchange, a podcast featuring real stories, real people, and real purpose. Today's episode is part of a special edition two-part series featuring the Music is Unity Foundation, created by the legendary Phillip Bailey of Earth, Wind, and Fire. Music is Unity partners with organizations nationwide to uplift and support young people aging out of the foster care system. And with Giving Tuesday coming up on December 2nd, the foundation is raising funds to expand access and opportunity for young people transitioning into adulthood. In this conversation, I'm sitting down with singer-songwriter DREION, a standout from season 26 of The Voice, and a proud Music is Unity ambassador. We'll talk about his journey, his connection to the foundation, and how he's using his voice to advocate for young people aging out of foster care. Let's dive right in. Well, DREION, thank you so much for being here to talk with me today.
Absolutely. This is my passion. This is what I love. So
we're here today to celebrate your success in the music industry and also to talk about an issue that I know is very near and dear to your heart, which is advocacy surrounding the foster care system and support for people who are aging out of foster care. So to get started, would you tell me why this issue is so important to you?
Well, the foster care reform and just the foster care issue in the United States and the world in general is very, very important because as someone who has had the lived experience of being a youth in the foster care system and then being on the other side of the advocacy side, there just is not enough voices. There's not enough ways for these youth to be able to share their challenges. And it's really, really important because the youth need champions. They need people that will come in not only to speak for them, but also understand where they're coming from. And there's a disconnect there because it's really, really hard to understand the experience of a foster youth and having to be, slung around to different homes and be on medications and just the instability. It's hard to understand that if you haven't lived it yourself and understanding it. And so I think it's very, very important for people to be aware of in general, not just on, what they can do to help, but to understanding the lived experience of the youth themselves so they know how to better aid them in their journeys.
Mm. Well, thank you for sharing that, and especially for mentioning your lived experiences and hearing you talking. It's pretty evident that you're right. I mean, it is difficult to understand the experience of someone that has gone through something, maybe difficult or traumatic that we haven't been through ourselves. And can you tell me what kept you grounded or what gave you hope or inspiration when you were going through that yourself?
I always say the two things that kept me grounded and that just kept me together during that time was God and music. I was raised in church. I was raised around church, and that was a very fundamental part of just of my life and my upbringing. And in many ways, it was an outlet as well. And so, being in a situation where I'm alone, I'm isolated, I'm by myself. I don't have my mother, I don't have my family, I don't have anybody that is necessarily who I would consider a loved one or an ally. Um, God was the only thing that I had. And in that, I found the songs of the church a lot of times to be my form of expression, and singing being, one of the few things was that wasn't taken from me or that they couldn't take from me was my voice. And even at a young age as I was only 7 years old, it was the best way for me to be able to express. So that's what kept me grounded, but also, it also kept me um, distracted from all of the other, craziness that was happening around me, the confusion, the instability, the I was bullied, a whole bunch of other things, and so it really kept me in this kind of isolated world where I could at least, get through the days.
What are some of the challenges that people aging out of that system experience?
So aging out of the foster care system is basically, exactly what it says. Someone comes of age as, the age of 18, depending on, which state you're in. Sometimes the age is a little bit older, like 19 or 21, but in most states it's 18. And these youth that have been in the system for however long, whether they were a child all the way into their teens, into adulthood, or whether they were just, placed in the system into their teens or however that was, they age out of the system, and the state basically says, we are no longer responsible for you. You are no longer, excuse me for saying this, but for lack of better words, you're no longer property of the state. You no longer are responsibility. But the problem with it is that they send these youth, and there's 27,000 of them a year that are sent out like this, with no programs to be able to find housing, to find really any resources on how to take care of themselves. A lot of them don't have any blueprints because they didn't have people teaching them how to adult. They only knew going around from home to home to home. And so now you're told, okay, well, you're no longer our responsibility. Go out and figure it out. And a lot of these youth end up homeless. They end up on drugs. They end up in prisons. They end up, committing crimes just to survive. And that, creates a whole nother system of oppression, and adds to a whole nother, system of problems. And I think that the aging out point for a lot of youth is one of those really, really sore spots in the foster care topic, because there is no plan of action yet that has been placed for these youth. There are programs out there, like Music is Unity, and other programs that do help youth find, education, or higher education, or help them find vocational opportunities. But again, these are also based in location. I personally was not in a location where those resources were available. And so, though I did not age out of the system, um, where I was, the youth that did age out of the system couldn't go to a program that showed them, how to get into higher education, how to go to find vocational opportunities. They just had to figure it out. And that is a very, very broken spot in not only this country, but in the world when it comes to foster youth.
Well, thank you for explaining that. I think, it adds context when we're talking about how far you've made it and how far you made it on The Voice and all of the success that you've achieved, the amount of obstacles that you've had to overcome. It's important to know that, I think, for audiences as well, to understand that this is not just you're aging out and go have a nice life and everything is fine. But
Right.
there really are some hardships that confront you right when your adulthood is about to begin. So
Absolutely.
thank you. And where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay, nice. We're not that far from Omaha here in
Mhm.
Denver, but we kind
Yes.
of think of it as like cornfields and just endless space.
I will say, a lot of the, so I guess to you all it would be the east, but for us it's the, western part of Nebraska. A lot of it is, prairie land. It is the cornfields that you speak of. But I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, and that is the biggest city in Nebraska. And so it is like a mini city. It is, I grew up in the hood, in the urban community in Omaha, Nebraska, where there was a lot of gang violence. There was a lot of different things like that, but there also was an incredible music scene, and jazz and R&B scene, and places where I was able to, cut my teeth as a musician and learn the um the real deal musicianship things that made me who I am today. And so, Omaha for me, it's definitely, it's always home. It's always home. It is a place that, I believe has really, really shaped not only my talent, but the talent of so many. There's so many incredible talents like Warren Buffett, and Gabrielle Union, Malcolm X, Terrence Crawford. So many greats that have impacted the world, that have come from that same city. So it's an honor to be from there. But it also is a great feeling to be able to say that I came from a place where not many people know about, but not many people understand the hardships that come with it as well. Not just being in the foster care system, but being from a very, poor community, being, the son of a single mother, a young single mother who, had me at 17, and was trying to figure out how to raise herself and a child at the same time. Um, all of these challenges, have made me who I am today, and it all started in Omaha, Nebraska.
Wow, hearing you talk about your love for your hometown is really special. And let's talk about your music.
Mhm.
How did you get to The Voice? Tell me a little bit about that journey.
So I kind of give you the in between as well. So kind of moving from Omaha, Nebraska. The first time I ever left and lived anywhere else other than Omaha, Nebraska was when I moved to Boston, Massachusetts to go to Berklee College of Music. And when I received the Gates Millennium Scholarship, which is a full ride scholarship from Bill Gates and the Gates Foundation to go to any college I wanted to go in the country, and I decided to go to Berklee College of Music. So I was going to this very prestigious college on a full ride. And so I took advantage of every opportunity that I possibly could, with networking and connecting and being a part of um, everything that I could to learn how to make music a career. And in that, I met some great people, such as casting directors and such that work for The Voice and other TV shows and things of that nature. And I ended up being a part of a show at Berkeley, um, where one of the casting producers was like, "Hey, we really want you to come to the show. We want you to come be on the show." At the time, I was still finishing college because I was on a full ride. I decided that it wasn't the time then. I wanted to finish my education. And I did. I graduated in 2020. And after that graduation, I reached out to that casting producer and I said, "Hey, is this opportunity still on the table?" They said, "Absolutely." And so they put me through the process. And I think what was great about that is, I had gone through a whole bunch of musical experiences, life experiences that made me ready for that opportunity. I didn't just kind of just show up and, here I am. I really had an opportunity to understand the world of television and how that works. So getting on the TV show was a learning experience. It was, everything that I had dreamed, but it was also everything my family was watching, my hometown was watching, my children were watching, everybody was rooting for me to live up to everything that I had been working so hard for. Um, and even put my city on the map. So that was a incredible thing too. But being on the TV show, I got to go out there and meet some incredible friends and other contestants that were on the show. And we really were a support system for ourselves because that was a life-changing experience. I've never experienced an audition, an opportunity like that ever, because it's so unique. It's so like, lights, camera, action right now, and you're out there for a month just preparing for that one audition, and to get on that stage and to perform in front of Snoop Dogg, Reba McEntire, Gwen Stefani, Michael Bublé, in front of millions of people watching around the world. Um, I will say it was little DREION's dream come true.
My goodness. Congratulations. That's, first of all, it's remarkable that you chose Berkeley School of Music as your school of choice and took it so seriously that even when they were like, come on the show, you said, no, no, I want to finish my education.
Mhm.
Congratulations on all of it. That's really a very cool path to where you are today. Now, how did you first get connected with Phillip Bailey? And you mentioned music is unity. So, how did that come about?
So this is a very I love telling the story because it's amazing how it all came together. But it also goes back to Berkeley as well. When I was at Berkeley, one of the main things that I was preparing for, I was a songwriting major, so I had a lot of songs that I was writing, and I wanted to release my first project. And after graduating, well, I graduated in 2020, and everybody knows what happened in 2020. So with the world being shut down and graduating and going into a music industry where everything is, at a standstill, I decided that I was going to release my first set of music, and I wanted to tell my story and talk about my foster care journey. And so I released my first project called DREION, I Am Life. And it is, a very short, EP of songs that kind of walk through my different experiences in the foster care system. And after releasing that project, I reached out to, several different foundations, organizations, foster care foundations that I was hoping that the music would, speak to. They might be able to use it to help inspire the youth. I don't know what they were going to use it for. I just was hoping that it would connect somewhere. And a great organization called Mixed Roots Foundation, which is a partner organization with Music is Unity, was putting on I guess you would call it a foster challenge emergency fund. Basically, they were trying to raise funds for foster youth during the pandemic because, as we all know, these youth are already at a disadvantage, but even more so in a pandemic where there are no government resources for anybody. And so they love my story, they love my music, and they featured me during this event as an example of, of foster youth and the lived experience, but also what I'm doing now. And Phillip Bailey saw my performance, he saw my story, and he was blown away. He was like, "Where did we find this guy? Who is this?" And my relationship with Music is Unity and Mixed Roots and some of the other partnering organizations, it began then. But I really started to work with Music is Unity because they really loved the fact that I was somebody from Berkeley, because Philip Bailey's son went to Berkeley, and Philip also I believe has received several awards from there as well. So there's a connection there. I'm also a musician, and so there's just a bond there. And Philip then became a mentor as well, just kind of in this foster care journey. And from there, it blossomed into me representing um, Music is Unity, opening for Earth, Wind, and Fire on tour.
Oh my gosh. So the stars align, and now you're an ambassador for Music is Unity. I think that's just so cool. Wow.
Yes.
So tell me about the organization and how it provides access to resources that might otherwise have been out of reach.
The one thing I love about Music is Unity is that, they themselves aren't directly working with the youth. They're actually a resource for organizations that are already working with youth. So they have many different partners across the country that are working with the youth in arts and entertainment, specifically like Kids in the Spotlight, Elevation, and there's so many others that they work with. But they are basically using their platform, and Philip Bailey specifically using his platform with Earth, Wind, and Fire, and who he is as a figure and a legend in the music industry, as a way to shed light on all of the youth, such as myself and the foster youth in these organizations that want to experience music and entertainment and find that path, but don't have the resources to. And for me, that's huge because it's really, really difficult as a foster youth to find a passion. There's so many distractions and things happening. You rarely have time to be able to think of those things. So to have programs like Kids in the Spotlight and programs that are allowing you to express that as a foster youth, that is specifically tailored to your lived experience, right, at home, but also to a passion that you have or that you desire to have, is incredible. And so, what Music is Unity it does, it allows it gives funding to these organizations to be able to do that. It opens up opportunities even with myself and Music is Unity on tour with Earth, Wind, and Fire. As we travel across the country, we do what we call backstage sound check, where we invite foster youth from that specific city that we're in to come back and experience the entire backstage entourage, and how we do sound check, and the engineers and the people that set up the staging, and they get to meet myself, and they get to meet Earth, Wind, and Fire, and then the dressing room and all of that stuff. They get to see how it's done, hopefully sparking interest and giving them a point of inspiration and hopefully turning into maybe an internship, a job opportunity, or something of that nature. And we do that across the country as we travel. And it definitely is, it's incredible to see just the looks on those youth faces. They're like, I never even thought this was possible. What Music is Unity is doing is really using music to unify the foster care cause, to be able to unify these youth and give them not only, hope and inspiration, but resources that they need to be able to have a swift transition, and a transition that is not going to end in poverty or some of the statistical things that we see.
Yeah. Music is so healing and it's just so beautiful. It's such a connector and a universal language. I just love speaking with musicians and musical artists because you guys get it. And I
Mhm.
think it's so amazing that Music is Unity is creating these connections for young people who, the music industry, it seems really elusive and kind of out of reach for everyone. But to be in that situation and to see directly firsthand, I could be here too. Okay, I have one last question for you. And I think it's just because so many people see your success and they see you up on stage and surrounded by lights or on tour with Earth, Wind, and Fire, and they think, wow, he makes it look easy, or he must have known someone, or, I think a lot of times when we see really successful people and just images, in entertainment especially, we don't realize all of the hard work it takes, all of the hardship and the pain and the struggle. And, we think that you just woke up one day and you got out there and you started singing and you made it. And so
Right.
I'd love to know, Drian, if you could speak to a young person directly who's going through maybe what you went through or going through challenges of their own, what would you say to them about their possibilities for the future?
One of the things I like to always go back to is that my dreams and my journey started in a little room in foster care where there was nobody listening, there was nobody watching, but in my mind, in my imagination, there were millions of people in front of me that I was singing to, that I was performing to. I held on to that until it happened. And so, one of my favorite quotes is by Confucius: "Those who say they can and those who say they can't are both right." It's about your mindset, and though it is not easy, it is not in any shape, form, or way easy to hold on to a dream or a passion like that, especially when everything else is going on, everything else is collapsing. You don't have a foundation, you don't have stability. I will say you have to have a northern light. You have to have something that you are running, walking, pressing towards, because it is the only thing when everything else is falling apart, everything else is, just not going right around you. It's the only thing that will keep you on a straight and narrow path. And I would definitely say that, it is important that if you don't have anybody to believe in you, or you don't have, anything specific that you can find as that North Star, to really sit and think about what you would love to do, what really is in your heart, what is really in your soul, what is something that you may think is out of reach, but it still is something that you would love to do. I ask a lot of youth that a lot of times, what do you want to do? And a lot of times, oh, I don't know. They usually know. But they've been so beaten down. There's like no way that it can happen.
Mm.
But I tell you, I went from being in a small little room in foster care to being on stage performing in front of millions, touring with Earth, Wind, and Fire all over the country. I've traveled and toured in Africa and Europe. I have, I've accomplished some incredible things in my short time, and it's only because I stayed true to my North Star. So that I would tell them that stay true to your North Star, figure out what that is, and when you find it, don't let anybody deter you from it. Don't let anybody take it from you, and just continue to go after it, because it will happen. The guarantee is if you quit, it won't. But if you keep going, the guarantee is that something is going to happen.
Very poignant. Thank you so much for all of your insights and offering all of your story with us. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for having me. I always appreciate the opportunity to be able to share and shed light on this incredible topic. So thank you for the opportunity.
The Music is Unity Foundation exists to uplift and empower foster youth as they transition into adulthood by partnering with and funding nonprofit organizations that offer vital support services to young people aging out of the foster care system. If you're able, please consider making a donation at musicisunity.org on or before Giving Tuesday, December 2nd. And remember to keep this important work in mind throughout the year. Every gift helps expand access, opportunity, and hope for young adults stepping into a new chapter in their lives. Thank you. We'll see you next time.